Have you ever woken in the middle of the night with a feeling that something was about to shift? Not just any change. One of those turns you feel in your chest before you even understand it with your mind. If you are here now, you've likely been through this, or you are going through it. Someone close to you, someone in your family or your inner circle, is being shaken from within. And the reason is you, not for ill, for good. For the truth about who you really are, a truth that person refused to see for a long time, but that heaven decided to reveal in the most powerful way possible. Stay with me until the end of this video, because what you are about to hear may be exactly what explains that strange sensation you can't put into words, that tightness in your chest, that mix of weariness and hope, that foreboding that something big is arriving. I didn't come here to give you an illusion. I came to give you truth. And sometimes, the truth that heals the most is precisely the one you've waited for years without knowing you were waiting. Let's start at the beginning, with the pain you carried in silence. Think with me. How many times have you done good and no one saw? How many times have you held back tears in front of the person who was supposed to be your safe harbor, but who, in practice, was more a source of judgment than of comfort? You were going through a real storm. Loss, illness, financial crisis, heartbreak, loneliness, and this person, instead of drawing closer, pulled away. Or worse, stood on the outside, looking in, murmuring, questioning your choices, doubting your capacity, watching you fall and thinking it was your fault. That hurts in a different way, because it's not just anyone. It's someone you've shared meals, memories, perhaps even a roof with. It's blood, or almost blood. And that closeness turns betrayal into a wound that doesn't close easily. You may have smiled on the outside and cried on the inside for months, maybe years. You may have wondered what was wrong with you to deserve that kind of treatment. You didn't deserve it. And now heaven is proving that. But before I speak about what is happening with that person now, I need you to understand something about attention. You need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment. The path that brought you here. There is a pattern that appears in the lives of people who are called to something greater. I'm not speaking of grandeur in the sense of fame or money. I'm speaking of a grandeur of soul. That type of person who endures more than they should, who forgives faster than the world thinks reasonable, who remains standing when everything around them crumbles. This profile has a name in the spiritual realm, Chosen One. And chosen ones have one thing in common. They are tested with an intensity most people cannot fathom. You have likely passed through at least one phase of your life where the pressure was so great you doubted everything. Doubted God, doubted life, doubted yourself. You wondered if it was worth continuing to try. You became exhausted with a weariness that isn't just of the body, it's of the soul. This weariness has a name. It is the weight of carrying alone what should have been shared, and a great part of that weight came from those who were close to you and chose to watch you fall rather than offer a hand. Now I want you to pay close attention to what I say next, because this is where the story begins to turn. There is a spiritual principle that runs through all traditions, from Catholicism to spiritualism, from Buddhism to African diasporic faiths, from the gospel to Eastern philosophies. that says this: truth cannot be hidden forever. It has weight, it has pressure, and when the right time comes, it breaks through any barrier that tried to contain it. Not because someone forced it, but because the universe, God, the spiritual field, call it what you will, has an intelligence that goes far beyond our human logic. And that intelligence knows exactly when it is time to reveal what was hidden. The person who was part of your pain is going through that now. Something has happened. It may have been small in the eyes of the world. A photo found by chance, a conversation that slipped out, a memory that resurfaced at the wrong time, a person who said something unintentionally and opened a window they preferred kept shut. It may have been a dream. It may have been a sudden silence at a family gathering that said more than 1,000 words. Whatever it was, it arrived with a clarity that cannot be ignored. And that person is shattered inside. I'm not saying this with satisfaction. I'm saying it with responsibility. Because what they are feeling now is a real spiritual process. And understanding this process will help you know how you need to position yourself when the moment of encounter arrives. Pride is a heavy armor. Whoever wears it for too long forgets that beneath it is living flesh. That person protected themselves from remorse with narratives. They convinced themselves that you were the problem, that your silence was arrogance, that your patience was passivity, that your faith was naivety. They built a version of you that justified the treatment they gave you, because it is easier to believe the other person is wrong than to face one's own failing. But when the truth arrived, and it has arrived, that narrative crumbled, and when the narrative that sustains pride falls, what remains is something much harder to carry: naked reality. The reality that they were wrong, that they saw you suffer and did not extend a hand, that they spoke ill of you while you were fighting alone, that they doubted your light while you were just trying to survive. That weight is upon them now, and it doesn't go away with distraction, with work, with TV shows, because it is a spiritual weight. It is the conscience waking after a long sleep. And when conscience wakes like that, abruptly, it allows no rest. Have you noticed anything different in recent days or weeks? A message out of pattern, a like on an old photo, a comment that seemed more personal than usual, perhaps indirect contact through a mutual acquaintance, asking how you are with an attentiveness that wasn't there before. These are signs, not of persecution, not of drama. They are signs of someone trying to draw near without yet knowing how to do it. Because remorse paralyzes. It creates a loop. The person wants to speak but doesn't know what to say, wants to explain but fears rejection, wants to apologize but pride still whispers that this is weakness. So they orbit. They appear at the edges of your life waiting for an opening. Sometimes without even consciously realizing that's what they are doing. And here I need to pause and ask you a direct question. Are you ready for this encounter? I'm not asking if you want it. I'm asking if you're ready, because there is a vast difference between wanting someone to feel remorse and being emotionally and spiritually prepared to receive that surrender with grace. Many people spend years asking God for justice, and when justice arrives, don't know what to do with it. Anger becomes the script, and what should be healing turns into confrontation. This video exists precisely to prepare you so that doesn't happen. See, what is being orchestrated here is not a victory in a worldly sense. It is not the moment to turn to this person and say, "I told you so." It is not the hour to compile a history of wrongs and present it as proof of how much you suffered. That would be human, totally understandable, but it would be wasting a sacred moment. What is being orchestrated is a healing. And healings demand something much harder than anger. They demand grace. Grace does not mean you pretended it didn't hurt. It does not mean you erased the memory of what happened. It does not mean you are obligated to open the doors of your life as if nothing happened. Grace means you recognize that that person also carried their own burdens, their own fears, their own unhealed wounds that made them act the way they did. And that, now that heaven has opened the way, you have the chance not to perpetuate the cycle. This has everything to do with lineage, with spiritual inheritance. Research in epigenetics, which is the study of how traumatic experiences are transmitted biologically between generations, shows something fascinating. Unresolved traumas are inscribed in DNA and can be passed to children and grandchildren. Science has already proven this. But what spiritual traditions have taught for millennia is even deeper. Not only traumas, but patterns of behavior, limiting beliefs, cycles of repeated pain within a family have roots that go far beyond a single lifetime or a single generation. When you endured what you endured without becoming what hurt you, you already broke a part of that cycle. When you chose silence over revenge, prayer over resentment, patience over bitterness, you were doing something your ancestors may never have managed to do. You were healing backward and forward at the same time. And now, in this moment of encounter that is arriving, you have the chance to seal that healing for good. Think of how this works in a typical American family. We know how it is. There is always that unspoken thing, that argument that was never truly resolved, but everyone pretends it was. That relative who was wrong and never apologized, but everyone still sits at the same table on Thanksgiving as if all is well. That pattern of pride passed down generation to generation, where apologizing is seen as weakness, where expressing emotion is over the top, where pain is swallowed and we just move on without processing anything. You grew up in that environment. You probably carried some of those patterns yourself for a time before you began to question, before you realized that forced silence is not peace, it is suppression. That swallowing everything is not strength, it is survival. And that survival, though necessary at times, is not the same as living. The process you went through, the one that seemed like destruction, was actually deconstruction. Everything that was not genuinely yours was being stripped away. The illusions, the hopes placed in the wrong people, the need for approval from those who never gave you real value, that was being removed layer by layer, painfully, as if someone were peeling away a crust that had grown over you. It hurts. God, does it hurt. But beneath that crust was what heaven always knew, the version of you that doesn't need validation to know it has worth. And it is that version that this person is seeing now, and it is that which shatters them. Because they tried to diminish you when you were vulnerable and couldn't. They tried to define you by your hardest moments, and the definition didn't stick. You didn't become what they thought you would. You became something they didn't expect, and don't quite know how to handle someone whole. Someone who, in spite of everything, is standing. Not standing with arrogance, not standing with bitterness, standing with a peace that confuses those who expected to see ruins. That peace is your greatest declaration. Not your achievements, not your visible success, not your appearance, your peace. That deep calm you built in the pain, that disturbs more than any speech ever could. Now I need to tell you something important about how this approach will happen. It likely won't come with a prepared speech. Don't expect an articulated, organized confession with a beginning, middle, and end. Genuine remorse rarely presents itself that way. It appears in the stumbles, in a message written and erased 3 times before being sent, in a call where the first 30 seconds are an awkward silence before the words come. In a visit where they look at you differently, searching for something in your eyes, unable to say exactly what. Pay attention to what is between the lines, to what the body communicates when the voice fails. Sometimes the most powerful apology you will receive doesn't come in words. It comes in a hug that lasts a little longer than normal, in a genuine question about how you are, with a real pause to hear the answer. In a small gesture, a good morning text after years of silence, that carries enormous symbolic weight. Heaven does not demand perfection in this process. It demands authenticity, and if there is authenticity on their part, you will feel it. Your soul recognizes truth, especially after so long distinguishing what is real from what is performance. But what if you are still angry? What if, when this moment arrives, what emerges is not the calm we are describing here, but that old pain, that knot in your throat, that tightness in your chest? That too is sacred. There is no healing without feeling. There is no real forgiveness without first honestly acknowledging how much it hurt. If you still have anger, the anger has a message for you. It is pointing to a wound that still needs attention. And before this encounter happens, the most important work you can do is give space to that pain, not to stay in it, but to move through it with awareness. Cry if you need to. Write on a piece of paper everything this person made you feel, things you never said out loud, and then burn that paper or tear it up. Say a prayer, even if you don't know exactly how to pray, even if the words come out crooked. What matters is the intention. The decision not to let the past command the present. Because when you enter this encounter still carrying the open wound, what happens is not healing, it is reactivation, and you have suffered too much to afford to reopen what was beginning to scar. So let's talk about something practical. What do you do when they appear? First, breathe, literally. Before you respond to anything, before automatic reactions take control, you breathe. That second of pause is where your consciousness has a chance to lead instead of your wounded ego. Second, you listen for real. Don't listen to respond. Don't listen looking for openings to confront. Listen to understand. Something powerful happens when someone feels truly heard. The heart opens, defenses fall, and it is in that open space that the deepest truth can flow. Third, you speak your truth with calm. You don't need to protect them from how you felt. You can say it hurt. You can say it was hard. You can say it took you time to understand what happened. But say it without accusation, without a list of faults, without a courtroom tone. Say it as someone freeing themselves from a weight, not as someone delivering a sentence. Fourth, you decide the pace of rebuilding. Forgiveness is not an event. It is a process. You don't need, on the day they appear, to have everything resolved, to have gone back to where you were before, to have completely reopened the doors. You can forgive without necessarily re-establishing intimacy immediately. Forgiveness frees you. Trust rebuilds with time and consistent behavior. And fifth, perhaps most important, you honor yourself throughout this entire process. Don't sacrifice your peace for the sake of superficial harmony. Don't swallow the pain again to seem spiritually evolved. Don't pretend everything is fine before it actually is fine, because that is precisely the trap that perpetuates the cycles we are trying to end. There is a saying from the American author and speaker Brené Brown that became famous because it touched the right nerve. Clear is kind, unclear is unkind. Being kind is not being passive. Being spiritually advanced is not accepting everything without discernment. You can be light and still have boundaries. You can forgive and still know who deserves your intimacy. That is spiritual maturity. And it is exactly for this that your process has prepared you. Now I need to talk about the signs you may be receiving as this moment approaches, because they are real and they have a purpose. You may be having more intense dreams than normal, dreams with people from your past, with places that carry emotional memory, with situations that seem more real than common dreams. This is not random. It is the spiritual field processing what the consciousness hasn't yet fully absorbed. Dreams are the soul's laboratory. It is where integrations happen without the ego's interference. You may be feeling more emotionally sensitive. A song you've known for years suddenly makes you cry for no apparent reason. A scene in a movie or show catches you by surprise with an emotion that seems disproportionate to the situation. A conversation about nothing ends with you needing to be silent for a while. This is the body releasing what was repressed. Let it. Don't try to control it. The tears we hold back become poison. The tears we let flow become liberation. You may be feeling a spiritual restlessness, a desire to reconnect with practices you abandoned or to deepen the ones you have, a wish to pray more, to meditate, to read sacred texts, to be in nature, to be in silence. This is your soul asking for nourishment before the big moment. Honor that call, feed that connection, because the more anchored you are in yourself and the divine, the more easily you will navigate what is to come. And you may be noticing a growing clarity about who you are. A sense that the things that once affected you so much no longer have the same weight. That the opinions that once had power over you have been losing their force. That you are more interested in being authentic than in being approved. This is not arrogance, it is alignment. It is the fruit of all you have traversed coming to the surface as lived wisdom. Because this is how spirituality works in practice. Not as a set of beliefs you embrace intellectually, but as a transformation that happens through experience, through pain, through the repeated choice to remain whole when everything around was pushing in the opposite direction. You did that, perhaps without exactly knowing you were doing it, perhaps stumbling along the way, having moments of doubt, of anger, of wanting to quit. But you are still here, and by remaining here, you proved something no words could prove, that your light does not depend on external conditions to exist. That is what this person is seeing. That is what paralyzes them. Not your external success, your internal wholeness. And now I need to tell you about something that happens very frequently in this type of process and that almost no one mentions: the fear of forgiveness. Yes, the fear of forgiveness. Not on the part of the one who erred, on your part. Because to forgive, truly, requires you to let go of an identity you built over time. The identity of the one who was wronged. And that is more complicated than it seems. When you've been through a lot, when you've truly suffered, when the world owes you an explanation that never came, you end up, without realizing it, building a part of your self-image around that narrative. I am someone who was betrayed. I am someone who was left alone when they needed it most. I am someone who survived in spite of everything. These narratives are real, and they have value. They helped you understand what happened, to process the injustice, to not minimize your own pain. But a time comes when they begin to work against you. A time comes when continuing to identify with the wound prevents you from fully inhabiting the healing. To forgive in this sense is not just releasing the other person. It is freeing yourself from a narrative that has served its purpose and is now occupying space that should belong to your new life. Think of it this way. While you carry the weight of resentment, you are in some way still connected to that moment, to that version of you that suffered, to that version of the other person that erred. It is as if you are holding a rope that ties you to the past. Forgiveness is not ignoring what happened. It is letting go of the rope. It is saying, what happened, happened. I acknowledge it, I felt it, and now I choose not to let it define where I go. That choice, when made truly, has a physical effect. Research in psychosomatics shows that genuine forgiveness reduces cortisol levels, the stress hormone, improves sleep quality, lowers blood pressure, and even strengthens the immune system. The body holds the grudge, and when the grudge is released, the body breathes differently. Have you ever felt that at some point in your life? That sudden lightness after a difficult conversation that finally happened. That sensation that a weight lifted from your shoulders after a prayer where you truly surrendered something you were holding. The body knows, and it responds when the soul is freed. This is the gift being offered to you now. not just the encounter with this person, not just the recognition of your worth, but the opportunity to arrive at a level of lightness you may not have experienced in a long time. That sensation of walking without the invisible weight you carried for so long, you didn't even notice it was there anymore. And there is something more. When you move through this process with awareness, when you receive this person's confession with grace instead of revenge, you are not just healing the relationship between the two of you. You are sending a signal to everyone around you. To your children, if you have them, who learn by observing how you handle conflict and reconciliation. To the friends watching from a distance without saying anything. To the other family members who know of the situation and are waiting to see what will happen. You become a living model that it is possible to move through betrayal without hardening. That it is possible to be deeply wounded and still emerge with an open heart. This has a power of collective transformation that goes far beyond your specific case. American culture, especially in more traditional families, has a complicated relationship with vulnerability and reconciliation. We learn from an early age to be strong in the sense of not showing weakness, of swallowing what hurts, of moving on without looking back. But real strength, the kind that transforms and endures, is not the strength of one who doesn't feel. It is the strength of one who feels everything and chooses even so to act with integrity. You have already demonstrated that strength. Throughout all you've been through, you demonstrated it repeatedly. And now the moment is arriving to demonstrate it in a way that will stay in the memory of all who witness, directly or indirectly, this chapter of your life. Now, nearing the end of this video, I want to leave you with something that goes beyond this specific encounter. I want to talk about what comes after. Because when this cycle closes, when this healing happens, a space opens in your life. A space that was occupied by unresolved pain, by the weight of unacknowledged injustice, by the energy consumed in carrying what you never should have carried alone. When that space opens, it needs to be filled consciously. Otherwise, we tend to fill it with the familiar, even if the familiar is what we needed to overcome. So I invite you to think, what do you want to build in this new chapter? Not what you think you deserve, not what people expect of you, not what would be safe or reasonable. What does your soul, the most honest version of you, desire to create in this new phase? Perhaps it is a more authentic relationship with this person returning, built on real foundations instead of empty family obligations. Perhaps it is a lighter version of yourself, someone who no longer needs to prove anything to anyone because they already know who they are. Perhaps it is the openness to receive what you have always given: love, care, genuine presence, but this time from people who are at the same level of consciousness you have reached. The peace you earned was not given. It was built, brick by brick, in your hardest moments when you chose not to lose yourself amid the chaos. It belongs to you. And no encounter, no confession, no approach can take it from you. You can welcome someone back without sacrificing that peace. You can heal a relationship without dissolving into it. This is what it means to be the vessel of healing. Not to empty yourself so the other can overflow. To be so full that the inevitable overflow reaches those around you. You came this far in this video for a reason. Perhaps you didn't even know exactly why you clicked, but your soul knew. Because your soul recognizes the invitations heaven sends, disguised as content, as conversations, as casual encounters that are not casual. This is one of those moments. And before you leave here, I want you to do one thing, just one. Go to the comments now and write, "I am ready for the healing, not for me, for you." As a declaration, as a signal to the universe that you have received what was sent here, and that you are standing with your soul open for what comes next. Read the other comments too. You will see you are not alone in this process. That many people are going through similar transitions, facing encounters that need to happen, moving through cycles that need to be closed. There is something very powerful in recognizing that your journey, as unique as it seems, is also profoundly human. If this video touched something real within you, share it with someone who also needs to hear this. You don't even need to explain. Just send the video. The message will find who it needs to find. And if you are not yet subscribed to this channel, do that now, because what we are building here is not attention. You need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuzazara readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.